Hey everybody, it's Charles from HumbleMechanic.com today, taking your questions on key issues, 2-liter project, catch cans, and more. This is episode 222 of the Humble Mechanic Podcast. Remember, to get a question on a show like this, email me, charles@humblemechanic.com, and put question for Charles in the subject. Also, if you don't hear your question on a show like this, be sure to check out the quick videos playlist on YouTube. In addition to that, there is an audio-only version of most of these shows. You can hit up on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, or of course at HumbleMechanic.com. All right, let's talk about the sponsor of the day, which is CRP Automotive. CRP deals in a ton of OE maintenance and repair parts, timing belt kits, suspension components, and even fluids. In fact, they make the factory DSG fluid for Volkswagen and Audi. So check them out at crpautomotive.com. And remember, if you want exclusive content, discounts at places like Black Forest, Eastwood, MT Knives, Sonic Tools, S&P Automotive, Prime Shades, and more, check out the Crew Membership Program. Great way to score some awesome discounts, as well as help support the show. All right, with that wrapped up, let's get into your questions. First one up is from Nick. Hey, I'm a big fan of your show, and I'm relatively new to the VW community. This is my first foray into the brand, being a 2017 Golf R. That's a pretty cool first Volkswagen. Purchased it 7 months ago. Recently been looking into catch cans. I like the idea, but I'm concerned about them freezing in cold weather. Living in Wisconsin, this could be a real issue for me given the extended low temps during the winter months. Since my Golf is daily, I don't want to buy and install something that could potentially harm the car or I have to remove before freezing temps. Thanks, Nick. Okay, Nick, this is a possibility. Where I'm at now in the South, US, not really a possibility. But in the northern states, yeah, it could happen. I took that sample that I collected out of the Tiguan's catch can, and I put it in the freezer, and what happened? It froze. Now, that's a lot colder than it is most places, but, in that area of the country, yeah, it could definitely get that cold for an extended period of time. So a couple of things you can do. You can wrap it, and that will help, right? That'll hold that heat in a little bit more. You can get some heat wrap or something like that, similar to like the turbo blanket material that we did, Jason and I did the video on. So you could do something like that. You could put a heater on it if you want. I don't know. That's a lot of work, I feel like, in my opinion. You can empty it frequently so that the level never comes up high enough where it really will be an issue. And I think that if I were you, Nick, and I had this really sweet Golf R that I'm a tiny bit jealous of, and I wanted to put this catch can on it, I would do one of two things. Or three things, I should say. I would probably wrap it or make like a little nice cozy sweater for it to put on in the wintertime. So I'd do that. Then what I would do is I would empty it a lot, like weekly, bi-weekly, something like that. So that level never got high enough where if it did freeze, it would become problematic, essentially clogging that setup, clogging the PCV basically anyway. And the third being try and park it in the garage all the time. That's kind of a long shot, maybe it's not. But those would be the three things I would do to mitigate some of that opportunity for that liquid to freeze. You can always take it back off and put it back on, but I agree with you. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do, and I wouldn't want to do it. Like, I wouldn't install it because I had to do that. If the rest of your car is stock, maybe wait until you have some more mods or don't. This is really up to you guys whether you want to install something like this or not. Clearly, it is not mandatory that the car has it because, well, plenty of them don't. On the flip side of that is we did see a lot of that nasty stuff that came out of the Tiguan, so there's a clear benefit, I think, to installing it. So think about those things, Nick. Wrap it in a blanket. Make sure you're emptying it frequently, and you probably won't have any issues. If any of you guys have experience out there with this freezing, causing catastrophic damage, drop it in the comments. Let Nick know. And hopefully we can help them avoid a very serious issue. Or if there's any other ideas you got, post them down below. All right, next one up is from Edwin. What rubber components can/should I lubricate to keep them hydrated and potentially extend their life? I used to drive a 93 Del Sol, and one recommended maintenance was to hit the seals of the Targa with a silicone paste from Honda to keep them from drying out. One of your videos, I noticed you talk about CV boots cracking in the accordion part or down by the clip. Do you think hydrating the rubber with some of the paste would extend its life? I've done this periodically on some of my door seals on my '08 Jetta, just to keep the fresh since I live in a super dry climate, Phoenix, Arizona. Love to hear your take. Thanks, Edwin. Yeah, so I don't think VW has anything in procedurally about that. They do have it for the EOS tops. I think doing the door seals and the window seals 2 thumbs up. I think that's a great idea. I've had a lot of issues over the years with seals getting dirty and causing that pinch protection to activate. So pinch protection, the window will come up, it'll stop, and it'll come back down. Most of the time, it was either a dry or dirty seal or a dirty window that was causing that. There were a handful of failures and problematic issues, but more times than not, it was a dirty window seal. So that would be a great opportunity to clean those seals as well. As far as doing it on the axle boots, you know, maybe the difference between the axle boot and like the target top is that axle's rotating and the accordion's flexing. So I think you're going to end up probably spinning most of that grease off. Think about it this way. When you get your car detailed and the detail people put all that pretty tire shine on and it looks all wet and cool, and then you drive it 3 miles and it's all sprayed down the side of your car, I feel like that's mostly what you would be doing with all that probably fairly expensive paste or spray that you were putting on the boot. So I don't know that I would really take the time to do that. In addition, like what else is it spraying on? Do you run the risk of it getting on your brakes? Probably not, but it is something to consider. So I don't think I would do it. You know, the axle boot failure is really common on most VWs. In the accordion is like my style Passat, B5, B5.5. The newer ones actually break right around the clamp on the inner part of the outer joint. And I don't think any kind of spray or anything like that's really going to help that at all. So I don't think I would spend the time to do it. But on the rest of the car, like you mentioned, door seal, window seals, I think those are all good spots to start and trial it. Now, if you do want to put this spray on an axle boot, say, spray it on, rub it down so there's not a ton of excess, and see what happens. You may find that this is the miracle solution to broken CV boots. You may find that it was a big fat waste of time. You may find that some of this stuff actually collects dirt, and then what happens in those accordions, those little tiny rocks start rubbing and create more problems than they solve, and I don't think they're going to really solve any issue anyway. So Edwin, good question. I love thinking beyond just like the normal automotive maintenance thing. That's really cool. Keep it up, guys. That's one of the whole points of this channel, is not just show you here's a step-by-step how to do things. It is to help you think with your brain about cars in different ways to be more successful technicians, more successful vehicle owners, save yourself money, buy smarter tools, buy smarter car parts, all that stuff. It's not just step 1, do this, step 5, do this. It's more of a mindset than anything. All right, next one up is from Zach. Where do I start to solve this issue? I have a 12 TDI Touareg and I'm experiencing weird key issues with my car. It's equipped with Kessy, and when I grab the door handles, it operates normally. Sometimes when I lock the door and I'm still close without touching anything, this car starts locking itself multiple times randomly. When I get into the car and click the start button, sometimes I get a no key programmed warning in the cluster. I have replaced both key batteries 3 times each. All the best, Zach. Okay, Zach, you did step 1, replace the key battery. Here's something we need to understand about the key battery, which actually is very similar to the battery I have in my remote for my camera. It is a small, tiny battery that needs to have, at minimum, over 3 volts. If it has 2 point anything volts, it will not work correctly all the time. If it has 3.0 anything volts, you're really on the borderline with that. I always like to see 3.1 up in the voltage, and that's if you take it out and actually put a multimeter on it. The other thing that's important to note about these batteries is these are not AA batteries flying off the shelf, so the odds of the packaging being around a long time, wherever you bought them, is pretty high. Even seen it at the dealership where you cut the package open and put a fresh battery in it, and it would be borderline on the voltage. This is also a part that you should not buy at the dealership because it's very expensive at the dealership. I think we charge $8 or $9 to buy that battery. Of course, we put it in the remote for free, but even still, this is one that's definitely an Amazon purchase. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to buy one from Amazon. So double check the battery voltage in those remotes. Step 2 is you need to see, is this happening with both remotes or just one remote? You said you replaced both key batteries, so I'm assuming you have multiple remotes. We need to see, is this happening with one or both? And this is going to split our diagnostic path. If it's happening with one, it's probably just that key that's having a problem. We can solve this problem by reprogramming the key. That may or may not work, the key and the remote. That may or may not work, and unfortunately that's not a DIY. You're gonna have to take it to the dealership to get that done. And of course, bring all the keys you have because they're gonna relearn all the keys. If it's happening with both, it's probably more a global issue with the car. Now, what we need to do when we figure out, is it one or is it both? Or if you already have the capabilities, do this after you figure out whether the batteries are good or not. Run a fault log and see if you have any faults. Perhaps you have one of the sensors in one of the door handles acting weird, or a wire in the boot for the handle acting strange. Is this happening in a similar spot? We used to get people, because we weren't too far from the airport, when they would park at the airport, the keys would get all squirrely with all the radio waves, buzzing around all in the area, in the air, and it would make their car battery die, or their car not start when they picked it up from the airport. Or, here's another one, customer had a Volkswagen and an Audi, and because they were both Kessy, they would get all squirrelied up with each other and be problematic. So those are a couple other things to think about. But really, I can't stress enough, guys, the battery voltage has got to be right. It's got to be 3.1 or more, in my opinion. The manual says 3 or more, but I found that that's not always enough. And then scan faults. That is going to be your next step. If you don't have a way, isolate whether it's 2 keys or 1 key. That way you have that information to bring to a repair shop. And unfortunately, best case scenario, reprogram the keys and you're good. Worst case scenario, it could go way, way down the rabbit hole, and that is an expensive proposition. Luckily, I haven't seen too many Kessy issues with Torags that weren't key battery, key fob, or some kind of damage to one of the handles, whether it was the door handle or one of the proximity sensors inside the vehicle. Pretty minor things, even replaced a couple, and also plugged a couple back in. But we always had some kind of fault pointing to which antenna it was having the issue. All right, last one of the day comes from Ivan, and he asks, is a 2.0 project worth it? Hey Charles, I have an '05 Golf GLS with a 2.0 engine manual transmission, currently sitting at 125,000 miles. This is my daily driver, but I'm thinking of buying a new 1.4 Jetta to use as my daily, and want to build this 2.0 to make it a fun sleeper. My question is, does that engine have any sort of potential to make it really fast and fun, or should I find another car with something like a 1.8 turbo or VR? My goal is to get to 250 horsepower range or maybe higher. Thanks for your time, Ivan. Okay, so whether it's worth it or not is totally up to you. There is some potential for modification without going insane on modifying that engine. What I mean is, like new cylinder head, turbo, that'll get you there. Supercharged, that'll probably get you there. Nitrous, that might get you there, and a kaboom to follow. I don't really know. There's not a whole lot of nitrous 2 liters running around. So, 250 horsepower is a really good number to target, but we have to think of what do we want to do with it. Is this just a car we want some more power, a little bit more fun to drive? Then maybe doing some bolt-on mods, a tune, and a cam, maybe all it needs. If you are looking to really build like a true project car, you're gonna get there faster, you're gonna get there probably cheaper with swapping the engine out. The 2-liter is one of the most bulletproof engines Volkswagen has ever built, especially the ones without the stupid plastic intake manifolds. It's a good, solid engine, but it's limited. Which route do you wanna go? Do you want to build an NA engine 2-liter? Build it. Do you want to build a 2-liter turbo? Build it. Do you want to swap a 1.8 turbo? Swap it. Do you want to swap a VR? Swap it. Do you want to swap a 3.6 in it? Cool, that gets my approval for sure. The great thing about the Mark IV platform is that you have all those options that essentially bloop, drop right in. You can find a wrecked '05 Jetta 1.8 turbo 6-speed and plop it right in and not have to do a whole lot of any kind of modifications in order to get it to run. The other thing you need to be aware of, in a lot of states, you have to be careful because you can't actually install an engine older than the model year your car is. It's dumb because yes, you can rebuild a 60-year-old engine and make it better than new, but that's the law, so pay attention to that. It's something to think about. Right now, like one of my favorite swaps is actually something like the newer 1.8, the newer 2-liter, the newer 1.4, but that is a territory that you are going way deeper in, and I feel like if you were prepared for that, you probably wouldn't be asking me this question. It's something I've been doing a bit of research on because I'm kind of thinking, what's my next project? I got the really kind of cool idea for something I'm hopefully going to pull together, but we'll see. So you need to kind of chart out what you want from it. Do you just want your 2-liter to be more fun to drive? Dude, buy an exhaust, buy an intake, maybe a chip or a tune, and see what happens with it. Spend a handful of $100, but I almost promise you that you're going to be able to get more return for your money that you spend on probably honestly doing a 1.8 turbo swap, given the potential for that engine and it's already boosted, rather than trying to bolt a bunch of stuff on just to get a few more horsepower out of your 2-liter. That being said, if you think your project car is worth it, that's all that matters. Build it for yourself. There's so much information online. Build it for yourself. Do it because you want to, not because anybody else, including me, especially me, thinks it's cool or thinks it's not. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Questions, comments, you know what to do. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up. Always appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe right here on YouTube and over on the blog at HumbleMechanic.com. If you want exclusive content and discounts you can't get anywhere else, as well as the VW Audi training manuals for our classes that we teach, hit that crew membership link down in the description. We also have a Patreon set up, as well as the Amazon affiliate. All of that literally does help me keep the lights on. You can follow me if you want to for more GTI updates is what it's been lately, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course on Snapchat. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, audio only version as well. You can listen to that on iTunes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.